let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Yeah, this is Jim from Southern Ohio. Do you ever think that maybe Jim Schwartz might want that job? He's been a coach before, and if he don't want it, Jon Gruden said on one of his podcasts that he could win with Shedeur. So he was a pretty damn good coach. He won a Super Bowl. What do you think about that? Tell me what you have in mind. Thank you.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, if they do decide, and we'll get into that a little bit more about Kevin Stefanski. If they do decide to move on from Kevin Stefanski, I would assume they think enough of Jim Schwartz to talk to him. Jon Gruden, I think that one's beyond. I think his time has come and gone.
With Jim, you owe him the respect of saying, Jim, is this something you were interested in? Because you don't do that, then all of a sudden there is a head coaching search. Then you're losing one of the best things you have going about your coaching staff, which is him leading your defense. My belief at this time in Jim Schwartz's life, I think Jim is just more than ducky coaching this defense and maybe does not want any more. The thing with Jon Gruden is whenever he gets asked about any job, Jon Gruden tells you he'd love to be there. If it's a college job, if it's a pro job. And I just kind of think maybe Jon Gruden's really enjoying what he's doing, and it's difficult, when you're working from Barstool because, everything is, the way they do things, they all have fun with it. But it never seems like there's truly like that, Oprah one-on-one moment where, Jon, do you really want to coach football again? And we don't know that, from Jon Gruden. If he was interested, I don't think anybody would obviously probably, you know what, Jon, no, we're not for you or you're not for us. I don't think it would certainly go that way. But, there is, certainly, it's difficult when you're talking about a team that may win 6 games over a 2-year period. Just as much as I said, if people felt somebody's head had to roll over to Deshaun Watson, that failure that trade was, or heads should have rolled, I can't disagree with you. If somebody's head needs to roll, even though the belief was this year you weren't going to contend, but it's still back-to-back 3-win seasons, I can understand, that yes, if you feel that a head has to roll, I'm not going to sit here and necessarily argue with you over that. But the problem also is if you bring in a new head coach here, and say it's going to be a defensive-minded head coach, which looks like the best of what's available right now, how are you handling the offense with Shedeur? How are you handling the offense with Shedeur and maybe what could be a Mendoza, a Moore? Because, you need to find what would be the greatest offensive coordinator candidate there is, and then you run the risk of he might only be here for a season because if he's that good, he'd go on to his job his own. There's a lot going on, obviously, and there's a lot of talks that are going to have over the next month, and then certainly the days and weeks after that. We got to get through this, and we kind of have to get ourselves a firm belief on what we feel Shedeur is, what these young players from this 2025 class who have been so great, what they are. And then you can kind of maybe start to develop a better picture, at least at maybe what a game plan will be going further.
Do you have any sense of who is out there that would interest you as a potential head coaching candidate? I struggle with that. I would want a guy that's been a head coach. Saleh, McCarthy, Gruden, There isn't a slam dunk guy, If it was Vrabel, yeah, sign me up for that. And he wasn't going to take that job. We've heard he was not going to take the Browns job. There isn't even a Ben Johnson. There's not a hot coordinator who's decided, you know what, I'm going to go back and do my thing.
Well, that's the thing. They're gone. Liam Cohen is already in Jacksonville. Johnson is already in Chicago. If you told me, and look, I do like these names of these young defensive coordinators, but, my questions for the for the Cleveland Browns, I don't have any questions in regard to my defense. So, bringing in a defensive-minded head coach, I don't know what that necessarily does, for getting the Browns offense to hopefully where it needs to be. Because you look at the state of this division right now, And, who knows what's going on with the Bengals? They have major, major needs. Pittsburgh, you may win the division, but who cares? It's with Aaron Rodgers. What's the spot you can do that next year? The Ravens, Lamar is just not Lamar right now. So there is, if it's done right and you address this offense and you get the right mind, if you make the change, that you would consider the Cleveland Browns to be a serious contender for the AFC North next year. So if that's the case, and, do you want to change everything, or do you just want to get one more good flow of more talent coming in here and maybe stick with what you have? Or maybe there is some belief that maybe Kevin Stefanski, with all that's going on, maybe is thinking about a life after Cleveland. It doesn't mean he's, married to the idea, but, he's not stupid. He knows what his team has done the last 2 years. He knows there's probably, some sort of possibility that he could get let go. So for him to say, private talks about maybe this organization or that organization, I'm sure they go on. But until he has a definitive, sure, he's going to think to himself, what could be out there as far as what is next for him. I don't know, man. But looking at that list and, Mike McCarthy, it'd be 3 times now.
Yep.
The Dallas stint didn't do much. It already seems like Tennessee has got some serious flirtations with Mike McCarthy. And at least Mike can look at Tennessee and say, I know it's Cam Ward. He looks at Cleveland. He doesn't know who the quarterback's going to be. So, again, it'll play out over the next month. We'll find out. But, from what this, I think Andrew Berry is more than fine with what he's doing. This draft class has shown us that, it's going to be tough. And then there are what people have said about Jimmy Haslam, that he's worked so hard and waited so long to just get decent human beings who do things the right way working for him. And I do believe Jimmy believes in that. I think he believes in the fact that he has some good people working for him that maybe, and it's not like other businesses. I'm saying? These wins and losses aren't necessarily familiar to the way Jimmy Haslam has built his fortune. Good people usually lead to good success. Unfortunately, in sports, it's only measured one way.